Good morning. Welcome to First Church Boston. I am Barbara Martin, the chair of the Standing Committee, and I am delighted to welcome all of you, those who are with us online and those who are gathered here in our wonderfully sunny sanctuary at the corner of Berkeley and Marlborough in Boston. I particularly want to welcome any of you who are visiting here, and particularly for the first time. If you would like to learn more about First Church Boston or about Unitarian Universalism, you can go to our website, firstchurchboston.org, or look for me or Reverend Stephanie May at Coffee Hour, which follows the service and which we very much hope you will stay for. I have a couple of announcements today. One is that the social justice community meets at 12:15 in the chapel. The discussion today will particularly focus on our partnership with the Greater Boston Interfaith Organization and its campaign to address homelessness, not homelessness, but housing, the opposite of homelessness, the very critical issue of housing throughout the state as well as in the city. We'll be talking, both reporting from some events that some of us have taken part in this month, and then looking ahead to upcoming events, including an in-district meeting with state legislators that will be held here at First Church on February 15th. And I urge all of you to attend, whether you vote in this district or whether you just go to church here. It's a chance to hear directly from state legislators and to express our support for the Affordable Homes Act, which Governor Healy supported so strongly in her State of the State address. Another upcoming event is the Winter Walk to bring awareness and funds to end homelessness in Boston. That is next Sunday before church, and you can find details about signing up with the First Church team if you're interested in walking or donating. It's a very short walk. It's around the Common and the Public Garden, so it's a chance to be with others who are calling attention to this issue and directing funds to the many organizations in Boston that work directly with those who are experiencing homelessness. So Reverend Stephanie and I are walking. I think a couple of other people have signed up, and we hope to see some of the rest of you as well. Thank you again for being here this morning, and let our service now begin.
Our theme this month is justice, and this is my favorite quote about justice. So I have a sign I made for the month. Justice is what love looks like in public, by Cornel West. And you'll hear more about that in the sermon later. Our opening words I thought we would do in relationship as a responsive reading. If you want to turn to your hymnal, gray hymnal, number 584. It's Dr. Martin Luther King's words on mutuality. We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied to a single garment of destiny.
Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere.
There are some things in our social system to which all of us ought to be maladjusted.
Hatred and bitterness can never cure the disease of fear. Only love can do that.
We must evolve for all human conflict a method which rejects revenge, aggression, and retaliation.
The foundation of such a method is love.
Before it is too late, we must narrow the gaping chasm between our proclamations of peace and our lowly deeds which precipitate and perpetuate war.
One day we must come to see that peace is not merely a distant goal that we seek, but a means by which we arrive at the goal.
We must pursue peaceful ends through peaceful means.
We shall hew out of the mountains of despair a stone of hope.
Thank you. Please rise in body or in spirit now as we light our chalice, symbol of Unitarian Universalism, and say together, not the very long 1630 covenant that we went through last week, but the simple First Church Boston affirmation. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek truth and love, and to help one another. I invite you now to please take a moment to greet one another, respecting each other's comfort with COVID, and wave to the camera for the folks online. So today we're going to hear in word and song and poetry all kinds of images of justice and what the good world looks like. So our opening hymn approaches that. Hail the glorious Golden City, number 140. Please sing with joy.
Well done. Well done. Well, old Mr. Fanacapan finally died. And he left his huge mansion with 161 rooms to his 3 children. Why 161? I don't know, but that's the way the story goes. 161 rooms. And the day after he died, his lawyer was there meeting with the 3 children, 2 sons and then a young daughter. And the lawyer read the will and it said, each of you will have a chance to inherit the mansion. And all you need to do is to fill each one of the rooms in the mansion with something that will fill each one of the rooms. And whoever does that will inherit the house. And you've each been given $10 to do that. The children grumbled, as only children of someone who has a parent who thinks this is a good idea could grumble, like, oh my gosh, okay, all right. So first the eldest son, the wisest of the children, he went out and he went to an art supply store and he bought the biggest package of glitter that he could find. And if any of you have ever had glitter in your house, you know that glitter, I used to describe how COVID is spread by sort of saying, have you ever had glitter in your house? It's spread the same way. So the eldest son went up, he opened every door in the house, went up to the top floor, and he shook out this bag of glitter, hoping that it would go into every room, and the lawyer checked and went, there's a lot of glitter in the house, but it's not in every room. Then came the middle child, the second son, very thoughtful, very caring, and he took his $10 and he went out and somehow was able to buy 161 birthday candles. And he lit each one in each room, hoping to fill the whole house up with light. But the lawyer started to just check in all the rooms, and no matter how quickly he ran, by the time he got even to the second floor, all the candles were out, and he said, I'm sorry. You don't get the house either. You don't inherit the house. Now the third child was their daughter, who was, she was young, she was playful, and they thought, oh, what is she going to do? But she took her $10 and she went out and she bought a harmonica. And after the funeral, after they had laid him in this ground, they invited everyone back to the house. And she went and she unlocked every door in that giant mansion and left it all open. And she sat down in the middle of the front door and started to play the harmonica. And she played it and she played it. And soon the mourners who were walking around stopped. And soon some of them had smiles on their faces, and some of them even started to dance. And after she was done playing, the lawyer said, well, okay, that was very nice, but I don't think you get to inherit the house either. And she said, the first thing I did with my harmonica is I played and I filled the house with music. And by playing music, I filled this house with joy. And with all of the people here filled with joy, I filled this house with life. And the lawyer said, you are correct. You get to inherit the house. When we have those 3 things, when we have music, when we have joy, when we have life, any room, when we are able to celebrate all of the aspects of our lives together with others, we are able to transform the world and build a new beloved community.
And speaking of filling the house with music, I'm going to head out, and if someone young wants to come with me, that's great. If not, that would be excellent too. We'll see.
my own Christian background, that image of Revolutions 21 is something that still resonates so powerfully with me. That image of God wiping away your tear a moment beyond the sorrow and the suffering. So thank you for conveying that so powerfully. Our prayer today comes from the words of Marjorie Bowens Wheatley and Clyde Grubbs, two Unitarian Universalist ministers who imagined a better world and have done a heck of a lot to make a better world in Unitarian Universalism, building institutions and mentoring ministers of color so that we might have a more diverse association. As we prepare for our prayer, I invite you to take a deep breath in and out, and another in and out. The road of history is long, full of both hope and disappointment. In times past, there have been wars and rumors of wars, violence and exploitation, hunger and homelessness, and destruction of this earth, your creation. We have become a global village with a growing realization of how fragile this earth is and how interconnected we are to each other and to all creation. We cannot continue to live in the old way. We must make a change, imagine a new way, a way towards peace with justice and a healthy planet. O great creative spirit, you have given a vision of the good, and we yearn for a new way. But where do we find the courage to begin this work? We know that a different tomorrow is possible, but how can we build it? We think of the prophets, women and men, who voiced unpopular opinions, who made personal sacrifices, and sometimes lost their lives for the sake of justice. We think of the Hebrew prophet Isaiah, who called out to let those who are held in captivity go free, to seek solace to give solace to the poor and homeless. Let us be inspired by all who work to overcome misery, poverty, and exploitation. We think of Harriet Tubman, who called out to people of goodwill to join her on an underground railroad to lift a dehumanized people from the bondage of slavery to the promise of freedom, even when it meant challenging unjust laws. Let us be inspired by those who are outlaws for freedom. We think of Gandhi, whose belief in soul force, the witness to love's truth, helped to overthrow the oppression of an empire and gave witness to the way of non-violent action. Let us be inspired to become witnesses for peace. We think of Chief Seattle, who reminded us that we belong to the earth, not the earth to us. Let us be inspired by all those who work for the healing of creation, of Mother Earth and all her creatures. Who are the prophets that inspire you? They may be well known or known only to you, offering personal inspiration, courage, and hope. May they join a great cloud of witnesses to live a new way, the way of peace and justice, the way of justice lived according to the way of peace, the beloved community. So may it be. Amen. Please join me in a moment of stillness. I invite you now into this moment of gratitude and a reminder of our mutual networks with one another. This congregation today and always has been supported by the gifts of many, many, many. And so as the plate passes, please add a gift as you are able, or simply participate in this knowledge that we are bound together.
closer? Okay. It's from her book, Breaking the Fine Rain of Death. When I was a little girl, I spent a good deal of time trying to conjure up heaven. I thought that if I could just imagine those angels, those harps, those clouds, then I wouldn't be so scared of this big, angry, white-haired, white-bearded, white furrow-browed God the minister preachified about on those Sunday mornings in Southern Pines, North Carolina. I thought if I could see those fluffy clouds, sit on those soft with goose-down couches, move around with grace and style as my walk was a glide all over heaven, always being good, never having to worry about being bad, smell the tasty, because I just knew anything that had to do with heaven had to be tasty food. The fried chicken, the hot with butter rolls, the spoon bread. I realize now that I was associating heaven with the way my grandmama's house smelled on Saturday night and Sunday. I thought if I could hear the good music, because even my playmates and I knew that all angels knew the beat, could carry a tune, and play a mean harp. Then I wouldn't worry so much when the men in white sheets marched through the black section of town where my grandmother and all the other loving people I knew lived. I thought if I could just conjure up heaven in my mind and in my heart and in my prayers, then maybe, just maybe. It seems interesting to me now, years later, that I never once consciously associated paradise with what I saw and felt on earth when I was a little girl.
I didn't know the details of Hank's story, so I just have to point out that playing a mean harp is also a harpsichord. Not harpsichord, harmonica, right? So we had the harmonica show up twice today in the service. So today begins our month-long exploration of the value of justice. Now, as a former philosophy major, I am quite aware of the centuries of volumes written about justice. And as a daily reader of the newspaper, it is clear that questions of who is and is not accountable to systems of justice are currently live and divisive. And so on the one hand, talking about justice feels too enormous to know where to begin. And on the other hand, talking about justice is too consequential to ignore. Given this enormity of definition and import, what do we mean when we talk about justice? What do we picture when we imagine a just cause, a just relationship, a just world? What do our images of justice look like? There are multiple examples of theologians, ethicists, and preachers depicting an ethical dream of a better world. Sometimes the metaphor of home is used to convey such ideal places of belonging. One example comes from the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King's speech during the March on Washington in 1963. Author Alice Walker recounts portions of King's speech in a 1973 essay entitled "Choosing to Stay at Home," 10 years after the March on Washington. She writes, "And when he spoke of letting freedom ring across the green hills of Alabama and the red hills of Georgia, I saw again what he was uniquely able to make me see, that I, in fact, had a claim to the land of my birth. Those red hills of Georgia were mine, and nobody was going to force me away from them until I was good and ready to go. King's prophetic dream of a changed world of freedom inspired Walker's own imagination of a more just world. In that world, Walker and her Southern siblings could stay home. Walker laments the lack of jobs, money, power, and respect that had driven so many north, including her own summer job here in Boston in 1963 that kept her away from going to the march in Washington. Walker longs for a world in which she is not forced to leave her home with a countryside that includes the house where her mother was born, the old pine tree where her father rested on his way to school, or the land that her generations of ancestors worked and briefly owned. Before King's speech that day, Walker had never heard another black person encourage anybody to go back to Mississippi. She knew that if this image posed a challenge, that if followed would create change. Indeed, writing 10 years after the march, Walker recounts the images of change she notices around her while lunching with her husband in a motel in Jackson, Mississippi. The restaurant overlooked a pool whose waters her husband had tested in 1965. On that day, he received angry insults as the whites left the pool and watched menacingly from the poolside. 8 years later, Walker and her husband watch as a young black boy of about 15 swims unconcerned. When tired, he simply climbs out, lays on his back to dry off, oblivious to being watched by the white faces in the restaurant above. And yet, even as Walker acknowledges this boy's comfortable use of the pool as a signal of a better world, she also recounts how brutal and soul-draining memories of exclusion and violence still haunt her enjoyment of this landscape. For example, when contemplating a possible trip to swim and boat at the nearby Ross Barnett Reservoir, she must confront her harrowing memories of harassment by state troopers when she tried to swim there years before. And it also means being reminded of the man for whom the reservoir was named, the governor of Mississippi from 1960 to 1964, who won on an explicit platform of segregation, and during his term celebrated the centennial of the Civil War by traveling to Civil War battle sites to commend Confederate soldiers. And if you're wondering, yes, the reservoir is still named after him. Walker's depiction of her home shows how places hold powerful connections, as well as how places can change and resist change. She shows how social action can take root and be manifested within particular places and spaces that we inhabit and feel connected to, the pools we swim in, the pine trees we walk by. For Walker, her image of a better world is one where she can choose to stay in her particular home without being forced to leave by dynamics of racial and economic injustice or by threats of violence. Justice looks like the choice to remain safely and live equitably upon the land of her birth. Justice is not just a philosophical or theological concept. Justice and injustice are lived experiences of how and where people dwell in this world. Images of justice seek to show what it is or could be to live differently. Discussing the role of images and metaphor in social ethics, feminist Christian ethicist Beverly Harrison writes, They shape our sense of what sort of community would be beautiful to behold. Our images of justice provide intimations, imaginative envisionments of what constitutes the good of the whole society. Theological notions of justice ground our sense of purpose and order our direction as moral agents and communities. They give some clues for prioritizing our principles and identifying our concrete goals, end quote. Our images of justice may not spell out policy goals and legislative agendas, but they give us a sense of purpose and point to the direction of what a better world looks like. Our imagined possibilities provide clues that order our priorities and can help define our concrete next steps. Making a better world might just begin by imagining what a just world looks like, by considering what might be beautiful to behold. An aesthetic vision of justice also plays a key role in the work of womanist ethicist Emilie Townes. If you haven't noticed, this is in part based on my dissertation, which is why you keep getting quotes from academics. And Emilie Townes, who you heard earlier, is fabulous. So in her 2001 book, Breaking the Fine Rain of Death, Townes incorporates poetic imagery into her concluding chapter. In one poem, Townes discusses her efforts as a girl to conjure up heaven. In her heaven, there is tasty food, not unlike the way her grandmama's house smelled on a Saturday night and a Sunday, as well as angels who played a mean harp. Such images inspired her hope in another world where maybe, just maybe, she would not have worries about the men in white sheets who marched through the black section of town where my grandmother and all the other loving people I knew lived. Now, as an adult with new knowledges, Townes renews her search for paradise, and her new image of heaven, of a more just world, looks like people having a long and good life. Justice is an embodied experience in the here and now. Escaping this world to a theme park in the sky is not salvation. Rather, paradise looks like being in life-giving relationship with all people and with the sacred source of life itself, right here in this world. To me, this sounds a lot like the image of the beloved community, a term which the Reverend Dr. King popularized, but was first coined by philosopher Josiah Royce. In a 1966 article, King wrote, "I do not think of political power as the end. Neither do I think of economic power as an end. They are ingredients in the objective that we seek in life. And I think that the end of that objective is a truly brotherly society, the creation of a beloved community. Rather than the goal of political or economic gain, King works towards an image of a community of persons living in peace, justly sharing the resources of this world so that all may live fully and well. Rooted in a vision of agape love that begins by loving others for their sakes. King believes such love makes no distinction between a friend and an enemy. It is directed towards both. Agape is love seeking to preserve and create community. This is the love King has in mind when describing his image of justice as the beloved community. As you may be aware, the image of beloved community has become increasingly prevalent in Unitarian Universalist discourses in recent years. I admit that I have baggage surrounding the use of religious jargon. And at times, I have been skeptical of the rise of the phrase beloved community when it is used in ways that assumes all have a knowledge about what it means. This is always the danger of jargon, creating an insider and an outsider language that can be divisive, even as it can help bring the insider group closer together. And the phrase beloved community does have a particular genealogy of usage from Dr. King and Josiah Royce before him that you may or may not know, and that's okay. Because I believe it is also an accessible phrase that directly conveys a powerful image just with its two words. To be beloved or be loved is to be seen as a person of worth and dignity. To be beloved is to be recognized in one's particular manifestation of humanity as a precious gift. This is the message that we give at every child dedication and at every memorial service, that each life is a precious gift. This is also our centuries-old commitment to a universal love that defends and insists upon the inclusion of all persons. And this is the love that seeks to build communities of inclusion in which people are embraced with dignity and treated equitably. As one definition of beloved community on the bio for Dr. Janice Marie Johnson explains, King envisioned the beloved community as a society based on justice, equity, and love of others. For King and others, love and justice are not just linked. They are different manifestations of the same impulse. As philosopher Cornel West states, justice is what love looks like in public. To me, this quote is another way to understand the beloved community. What does it look like when we live out our value of love? What does it look like when we concretely recognize human dignity and inherent worthiness in all others? What does it look like when we embody love in the communities we build? Last week, I explored the history of the covenant here at First Church and asked what today draws this community together in shared purpose. For some years now, services have begun with the affirmation we stated together again today. And the first line, love is the spirit of this church. What does this love look like here at First Church to you? How do you seek to embody this love, not only for your own sake, but for the sake of others? What images come to mind of this spirit of love in action? What about beyond these walls or of the space in which you are watching this online? What images of justice, of love publicly manifested, come to mind? Can we imagine a world in which people live good and long lives, safely sheltered from winter's cold? Can we imagine a world where women do not need to leave her state to seek reproductive health care? Can we imagine a world where learning about gender and sexuality is as supported as learning to read and write? Can we imagine a world where immigrants do not need to sleep in airports or recreation centers because they did not need to leave their homes in fear of violence or hunger? Or can we imagine a world where millions of people do not live in constant fear of bombings or attacks across arbitrary lines of state power that ignore our shared human dignity? Images of justice shape our sense of what sort of community would be beautiful to behold. They provide a goal to which we can orient ourselves as we consider concrete steps of policy and action. What does justice look like to you? What would living within the embodiment of a beloved community look like? Here at First Church, within our Unitarian Universalist Association of Congregations, within Boston and beyond. May our images of justice and love guide us in our dreaming and in our actions. So may it be. Amen. Our closing hymn is number 170, We Are a Gentle, Angry People, and it is another which conveys another possible world. Please rise in body or in spirit. If you wish to take concrete action, there are signs in the narthex and also in the order of service information about how to join the Winter Walk next week, or simply donate. You can donate and walk, you can walk without donating. Open to everyone. And there's also, very importantly, we are hosting a Greater Boston Interfaith Organization in-district meeting here on February 15th. This is a really big deal. One of the legislators has quite some influence on whether or not the housing bill gets through. So just because you're here and you are part of a congregation that meets within the district, whether you live and vote here or not, please come. We want to pack the place and make them nervous. There's information and sign-up QR codes on 2 signs in the narthex and on the coat racks. Amidst a changing world of brokenness and beauty, may we hold fast to our faith in the flourishing of life, the abundance of love, and an ever more inclusive and just we. Amen. You want to extinguish the chalice, don't you? I forgot that part. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of our community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Amen.